All right, I added a few more things in here. It's hard for me to work and talk at the same time. Trying to actually be creative, I can't think that way. So, but anyway, um, it still looks kind of like a mess. I don't really know what I'm doing, but some forms are kind of starting to take shape, right? Like I guess this is going to be kind of like darker. This will be sort of the underside. I don't know what this form is going to be here. I think I might have to lose that. Um, and I guess this will be like the upper side and maybe kind of like at an angle and maybe a very thin, flat light part on the top catching the light. Um, but let's see if we can like break down some or add some lights and darks to kind of bring out the volume of the shape a little bit more clearly. All right. So we could do that in a just a layer on top clipped into that. I have kind of a lot of layers on here for this. You know, they're just kind of like supposed to all the panels and stuff. They don't really need to literally make shapes. I mean, sometimes they do, but um, they can kind of just suggest form and complexity that you don't have to go and add on there and just to make it seem more interesting. So anyway, the lights and darks, I could put them in a top layer, but I'm going to go down to this ship base here that I had just, uh, you know, it just tinted a little bit light and dark like that. So I don't have to, so I can stay on that layer. I'm going to turn on a lock transparent pixels here. So then if I paint, it'll only go onto, it won't go outside of the shapes. Okay. So if you decide you want to cut into or change the ship base shape for some reason, make sure you turn that back off again, or it won't let you add or subtract pixels that aren't already there. Okay. You can just change the color, which is what we're going to do. So let's say I'm going to go back to my polygonal lasso tool, and I'm going to select kind of like the bottom here. Okay, something like maybe here. And let's see what it looks like um, uh, underneath all these shapes, right? Because these shapes are kind of, if they're completely obscuring the background color, I won't see anything. But I've turned down the opacity in all of them quite a bit. So let's see what happens. I'm going to get pure black here and get my brush, turn the hardness down and the size up quite a lot. And I'm going to turn my opacity down so much because I want to kind of build it up a little bit. And is it doing anything? Turn my opacity all the way up. Yeah, so that's kind of interesting. Okay, it helps somewhat. Let's go select inverse. So I got everything above that line. And maybe I'll get my white now. I'm going to put that opacity back down here. Get a little white edge on that. A little shine on the edge. Maybe turn the hardness back up somewhat on this piece. I'm going to just get a better selection here. Okay, so it's kind of like starting to come together, maybe. don't. Some of the volumes aren't really clear on this. I usually try to see, understand what all the shapes are. I got to do something about this here because I think that's throwing me off. So I'm gonna think about that a little bit. Another thing you can do is to start to add in panels, just lines that represent the edges of panels, to help you describe or show where the forms are. Let me just go back to our samples here. Let's see, where am I? Our inspiration images. See if I can see. Well, this is covered with panels, but trying to find a simpler example. This has lots of panels all over it, but I'm looking for just lines. See all these lines all over here? The shape of the lines is all consistent with the volumes, okay? And if all those lines all over the place, tons of them, weren't there, you wouldn't really know what the volumes were. And they get thick and thin in a very cool way that is very sci-fi looking, okay? See how this is a simpler example. See how just the lines on the surface help you understand what the volume is, okay? These are a little more developed. They're have light and dark edges painted all over them. Okay, everybody's got panels. Here's a, there's some kind of like random stuff down here, but they're all the perspective of them all. Even though I don't understand exactly the volumes down here, the perspective, nothing disagrees with it. Okay. This has got just tons of horizontal things. Okay, see how it describes the shape? You have to be able to kind of draw to some degree to understand how to do that. That's one reason why I was suggesting do the spaceship straight from the side, like I'm doing, and like this one. Okay, it still can look cool, right? And it's simpler, kind of. Here's panels, right? And they're showing, helping you show where these guys bend is where there's changes, right? This is kind of like looking up, right? And this is a flat side facing you. Okay. So, maybe I'll go in, let me get, so I'm going to go up to the top. Actually, before I forget, I'm going to turn back off lock transparent pixels on my ship base. I'm afraid I'll forget I did that and then be confused. All right, I'm going to make a new layer, okay? And I'm going to create clipping mask. I'm going to name this panel edges or something like that. Let's see. So let me get, let's say 5 pixels wide and hardness turned up. Okay. So here I'm going to do the same thing. Right? If I just hold Shift down, okay, I got a nice panel there. All right, let me go here now. Whoops, didn't want to hold Shift on that one. Don't like that one. Anyway, so I'm just going to go and make a bunch of panels here like this and see if I can start making it look cool. Now, another thing you can do to make them a little bit more, have a little bit more volume to them. I just noticed I had my opacity turned way down, so I probably wouldn't really want that on my, I'm going to go down a little bit smaller. Although maybe 100% is too much on these. But you can always turn the whole layer down too, or put a mask on the whole layer. But what I was going to show you is I could put a little layer style on this. Not too much, but if I go to FX, drop shadow, okay, there's a drop shadow, but this represents an indentation, right? It's black because it's hidden from the ambient light, right? It's occluded from the ambient light in the scene, so it's dark because it's in a crevice. But like maybe the leading edge here that's pointed up at the atmosphere would catch a little bit of light. So for my drop shadow, and I think bevel and emboss is going to be too weird looking. Let's just try drop shadow. So I'm going to change my drop shadow to white. Okay. If it's at the default settings, multiply is only going to show a drop shadow if it's darker than the background. So it has to go back to normal or to screen. All right. So that's catching a little bit of light on the front edge. And let's see. I'm trying to think what's a good way to. I'm going to turn the size down. So see, size is how fuzzy it is, right? And distance is how far it is. And obviously, we don't want it to be any long distance. And we want it to be relatively down because it's reflecting what's above. And the size, if I turn the size all the way down, it's pretty hard edged. If I turn it up, it's soft. I think down makes the most sense, right? I'm turning it all the way down. And my distance is only like 4 pixels. Spread we don't need. And I'm turning, if I turn the opacity all the way up, it's probably too much. We're just trying to like, you know, we can always just try to add like a subtle thing there. But yeah, look, watch, if I turn the layer style off, it's just a line, definitely helps. Now it's going to be uniform on this entire layer, that layer style. That's one drawback. It's always going to be the same, but you know, it's going to get us pretty far. So let's try and bring out the lights and darks on your scene a little bit more and put panels in. You can have a ton of them or you can have just a few. It really depends on your design. So on this is looking kind of cool right here, right? And this underside here, I'll probably make it like darker with just a few highlights scattered around so it's more, you know, confusing, but in a good way. And this here needs to be figured out, right? What's going on? So I'm going to work on this a little bit more, and you guys do that too.